Ignite to Impact.
You're listening to Ignite to Impact, a podcast that inspires others to make positive, meaningful change in their lives and pursue their passions. My name is Geneva Williams, and I'm a leadership strategist, best known as the Vibrant Life Architect, who helps women desire and, hey, let's start again. Okay. All right. Thanks. You're listening to Ignite to Impact, a podcast that inspires to make positive, meaningful change in lives and pursuing passions. My name is Geneva Williams. I'm a leadership strategist, better known as the Vibrant Life Architect, who helps women be the best they can be. I'm sitting down with influencers to talk about their process, the lessons they've learned, and how to make an impact. And today I'm delighted to be speaking with Dee C. Marshall, who is a certified coach, author, speaker, leadership trainer, and all that good stuff. She's noted as a top 25 leading woman entrepreneur, as well as a top 25 influential Black woman. From Fortune 500 companies to Capitol Hill, where she works with local women leaders, to international women leaders. She does it all. She's a connector with golden contacts, and I'm delighted to have her here with me. How are you, Dee?
I am wonderful. I'm wonderful. Thank you for asking.
Well, that's great. So you know all about influence. So tell us about influence and why it makes a difference.
You know, it's an interesting topic, and I think this topic of influence and the role of being an influencer is really interesting because of the social digital world that we live in and how social and digital has really been part of the force that's behind this idea of influencer and influence. And I think it could be good and it could be bad because right now you have, a lot of people online who are gaining celebrity as a result of their influence, and influence identified by numbers, right? By likes, by follows, and such. So I think it's an interesting standpoint from there, but I will say when I've been asked to talk on the topic of influence, I like to say you can't buy influence, and influence is not necessarily about numbers and likes and follows, but it's really about the ability to create space for other people. That's what I think the crux of real influence is. It's not, can I do something for me and my business, but real influence has to be able to extend beyond what you can do for you. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. So you're saying that we should use that ability to persuade, to cause someone to do something or to, rally around a cause. We should use that or can use that for the betterment of others.
Exactly. And I'll share a quick story, I think, that really demonstrates influence. Okay. Because I have 3 really juicy stories.
Oh, please, share them. Ooh, we love it.
Yeah. So one is about Essence Fest. Another is about the Obama White House.
Okay.
And then the third is a conversation I was just having yesterday.
Right.
A couple years ago, I was speaking at Essence Fest, and a young man walked by, and I said, oh my gosh, I know that guy. So I walk over, and I said, I introduced myself, and I said, I know you. I've been following you online. And I said, I'm really impressed with your work. I admire and respect you from afar. Because this, Geneva was a young man. He had to be no more than 30, but he travels the globe. And he was so gracious and said thank you. And then he gave me a copy of his book. He said he wrote a book. I said, oh. I said, well, are you speaking here?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, no. I said, would you like to? He said, yes. I said, follow me. We walked 5 steps, and I introduced him to the green light person, the decision maker, who could get him on stage, the person who had brought me to speak at Essence. I introduced him to her. I said, Nehemiah, meet Kristen, Nehemiah. Do you know, in minutes, she invited him to speak at the Essence Fest. That's
Amazing.
what I consider influence. It's when you can use your position, your credibility, your relationship to connect other people, and it's an instant conversion. The reason why Kristen could invite him immediately, it's because apparently Dee Marshall has some influence, and that's the way it would look. On the strength of Dee Marshall, I'm going to invite him. I don't need his one sheet, his speaker one sheet. I don't need his bio. I don't need to know if he has a website, but literally in that instance, he was invited. And that, for me, was, it validated this idea of me having any sort of influence more so than me just having an opportunity to speak at Essence Fest. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, because it's about your social capital and how you use your social capital. So you were in that instance, you were using, the credit, the contacts, the influence that you had to open the door for someone else, and it worked marvelously. I love it. So what's the President Obama story?
Same thing. During the end of the Obama administration, I had the privilege of having 6 years of Obama White House access. So that was, I was being, I was invited to the table over the course of 6 years to participate in programs like Let's Move with the First Lady. And then when there was a call for women leaders or African-American leaders, I was invited over 6 years. But at the very end, I was invited, and then I had the opportunity to invite other people. And it was in 2 instances, and the final months of the administration, and it was so powerful because I was able to bring about a dozen young women from the Northeast, largely Philadelphia, to come with me to the White House when they were engaging in conversation about women of color, women and girls of color. So it was the White House Office for Women and Girls, and they were having discussions for girls of color. And that, for me, was influence. It was now that I could use this seat to create an opportunity for others. And I'll tell you, those women blessed my life because up until that point, certainly I would go to the White House. I've gone to the, briefings, but also the holiday parties of the Obamas, the infamous Love and Happiness event that happened at the end of the term that was televised. People even saw me on screen. They couldn't believe I was there. But what really blessed my heart was not just to talk about that I was at the White House, but that I was able to create opportunity for others. And that's influence, that your name or your invitation can be extended to other people. You can influence a decision or an opportunity. And so I took 2 rounds of girls in. They made me so proud. They stood up, they asked questions, they posted online. One is the student loan doctor who's really, her business has blown up ever since. Another woman, Antoinette Miner, she runs a social media practice. Same thing, her business has blown up since then. And there were so many other women. That's influence. And then the last one, I was on the phone yesterday with the chief diversity officer for a tech firm. And at the end of the call, I just said, hey, if you need support with that, I can get, I know somebody who, if you just want to have a conversation, I can connect you. She said, does he want a job? And it blessed my heart. And so that's what I believe influence is. You can have one conversation and there's conversion. There's a deal without having to prove and reprove and and go through all of the hoops and the process, that's what I consider influence. Certainly I can talk about when I learned of my influence, but I think just what it looks like is really important for people to know. Can you do something? Does your social capital, does your credibility, does your positioning convert and translate for other people?
Mm-hmm. And then I also think, Dee, listening to you, that there's a way, too, to close the loop. Because, yes, it's about your social capital, your influence. Does it convert for others? And then also coming back to you, it does, because you feel good. I mean, don't you feel good? I mean, that you've helped someone, that you've paved the way, that you've opened the door, that you've cracked the ceiling, whatever all those things are, that you, in fact, feel good about yourself and what you do, and it gives you purpose, helps give purpose and meaning in life. So tell me, Dee, how'd you get into the business of influencing?
That's a good question, and I'm not sure that I ever thought about how to get into the business of influencing. I think I've been in the business of serving for most of my life. Mm-hmm. I've been in the business of honoring my passion, walking in my purpose, and really allowing God to use me, work through me. And I think as a result of that, He's opened doors for me. And so, because of doors being open as a result of me really honoring passion, walking in purpose, and focusing on service, then that elevated me and the brand. And so I think that's how the influencer thing happened. In fact, when I identified this influencer label that had been attached to my name, it was really me just watching and paying attention and adding up there was 3 instances where I was invited into a room. And really quickly, I'll tell you just the one story. It's I was invited to a movie premiere, and it was an A-list celebrity movie. It was a Will Smith movie, and it was in New York City. And I remember going to this movie premiere, and then the reception was in a tiny room, and it's what I like to call the room of a few, or a room of a few, which is super powerful. I've learned to love a room of a few, because that versus a room of many. Okay. It was so tiny, this room. Maybe 10, maybe 20 people could fit in this room, and there were only a few, maybe a handful of people of color. Essence editor was there, Roland Martin was there, and there was maybe 1 or 2 other people of color. And I remember a woman said to me, she says, "Now what do you do?" Right? And I know what she was asking me. She really wanted to know what qualifies you to be here,
in
ma'am.
the room. That's right.
To be in the room.
That's right.
You know what, Geneva? You heard that before. When people say, "Now what do you do?" That means, girl, what qualifies
That's
you to
right.
be here? And I knew what she was asking, and I think I just said, "Well, I'm Dee Marshall," or something like that. But the long and short, here's what came. And the reason she was asking is because other people were either journalists, they were actors or actresses, And so I don't know what I shared with her, but it wasn't until I got home that night and I looked in my pocket, I pulled out the envelope with my 2 tickets for this invitation-only event with Will Smith, and my ticket with my name on it, it had this label. And I said, "Oh, that's what I am." It said key influencer. That's what my ticket. So that's how I was categorized.
Yes,
do you see?
Yes,
and
I do.
And for me, right? Because
and so you took that and ran with it.
Well,
right?
It wasn't just that, because I don't believe it's just one. But I knew that if you're in a room
that was
of
an
a few,
aha.
That was an aha as to how other people see you.
Yes.
And for your listeners who are learning about it, it's not necessarily all about who you say that you are, although that's extremely important. but it's how do other people see you and receive you and feel you? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because I could say I'm an influencer, which I think you have a lot of people claiming influencer. So, and we won't talk about that. But
yes.
in any event, so you're either an actress, you're celebrity, you're a journalist, and I don't resonate with those labels. They're not appropriate. But influencer, because I was in that room, that makes sense. In two other instances, Geneva, I was invited to when Hillary Clinton, this is now influencer status from the Obama White House, it now transfers to the next administration.
Yes.
Hillary Clinton, when she was running for president, she gathered faith leaders at Mother Bethel in Philadelphia for dinner, right, when she was running. I just thought it was maybe a regional thing, but I got an invitation. I go in the room. There's maybe about 40 pastors or 40 faith leaders, all with the title Reverend or Doctor in front of their name. And then there is this little brown girl. It's Dee Marshall. And I'm just Dee Marshall back then.
Yes.
I wasn't Dr. Dee C. Marshall back then. And there was only about 16 or 17 women pastors in the room, and I was one of them. And so I thought it was a regional meeting, and like, okay, I lead this ministry, Girlfriends Pray, for your people who are listening. It's www.girlfriendspray.org. And I'm like, maybe I'm here because of that. So I walk in, and what I learned is that this was not a regional faith leader event. It was a faith leaders around the country, because there is a few folks who had flown in. Woman from Detroit, pastor from Detroit, she flew in. You had Zena Pierre and Jamal Bryant in the room. They had taken the train up. And so I said, you've got to be kidding me. Regina Thomas was there, and then Hillary Clinton. So there's 40 faith leaders in the room, 16, 17 women. I am one of those 16, 17 women. I am the only one without Dr. Reverend behind or before my name. And so that was another instance of influencer. Okay. You're in the room because you influence. And so those are some mile markers as to how this influencer or how I began to receive it. And then a last instance, although now it's validated, I will say for me, no, the influencer is validated, because just because in one instance you're an influencer, I think it has to carry throughout. It can't just be one season or a one-off. It can't just be that you got tickets to be in a room with Will Smith. But, what other proof do you have, and what are the results that you have as a result? And the last one is, so now the Democrats are no longer leading or chief commanding, controlling the top position in the country, Dee Marshall. So how does this influencer thing play out? Are you going to lose some ground? How about it converts to tech? So I am in the inaugural Google Next Gen Tech Policy Influencer Group, which is a fellowship, and so of leaders from around the country, a small group of a few. And that was, I think, the final straw when I said, okay, so there you have, you're fully validated in that's the space that you hold, because the influencer, which is a room of a few, it's by invitation only, it's access where many people would not have, and it translates across industry sector, and that's how I knew that's the appropriate box.
So it's really interesting how you talked about how it, you're influencing, and how influencers, you'll find them all across different sectors. Do you see that influencers need titles or should have titles, or does it also go vertically? I mean, are there influencers at any level of community life? And if so, how do you know that they are an influencer, let's say at a grassroots level?
I think to answer the question, how do we know that an individual is an influencer? I think one, certainly if you are leading a group of people, or there are people, a tribe, who are looking to you and following, and so you can mobilize. Let's just say that's an indication.
Okay.
Right?
Good.
So if you can just mobilize people, I think, you have some influence, right? Now, in terms of these labels, I'm not the authority on, and I didn't write the book on influence, although I probably could. I could probably contribute to the book.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
really
it could be your next book. Right.
It could be my next book. I really could do this. So what I just described is somebody who has influence. And I do agree also that, it could be at every level, any level, every sector. I certainly think, though, that the baseline indication is, if you have a group of people who look to you, follow you, and trust you for something, insight, advice, or so yes, at all levels, I do believe that's possible. What I don't believe, because I really have thought about this, because I've been asked to speak about influence, I just don't. I think the only thing that's kind of out of the boundaries, or out of bounds, so to speak, is paying for influence. I just don't know that it's influence if you have to buy it.
Right.
So I think that's the one thing. I think anything else is open game, but I don't know that is it influence if you have to buy. If I've got to write a check. So in fact, this is the criteria. Influence is where you couldn't buy your way in. I couldn't buy my way into the Obama White House. I couldn't buy my way into the premiere with Will Smith. I couldn't buy my way into dinner with Hillary. There was no cost to that. You had to be invited. And it's because you either represent, you either mobilize, or you have something of value to contribute. Yes. So those are some of the other criteria. You've got something of value to contribute. You've got people who are looking to you and following. You can mobilize and then leverage that to serve the people.
Yeah, and I think that serve is a very important concept in influence. And, as you talked about, as you started your career, as you started out, you were just doing your thing, serving, doing your purpose, filling your purpose. And so at the basis of your influence, from grew out of that whole service mentality. And I agree with you. I think leadership and influence are they're in the same bucket. That in fact, if you can mobilize folk, if you can articulate a vision or a goal, and if people know, like, and trust you, and will follow you, and oftentimes you're right, it is how you're perceived. But I think that service concept that keeps you grounded, because if you're focused on bringing value and giving great content, it kind of helps keep you focused in that service mindset. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
So if you were, so let's say, Dee, and I know there's tons of women who want to be like you, want to understand the game and all of that. And there's this whole notion of, influencers own the room. When they walk in, they own it. What advice, what 1, 2, 3 best practices do you have to get to learn, to know, to become an influencer? What are some of the best secrets to owning a room?
Yeah, so I think, and this is a good question. So what are the best practices for, as you say, owning the room, perhaps gaining? Yeah, well, I'll stick with owning the room, I guess, to build influence. And I would say the first thing is to develop yourself. I think that's huge. I meet and I work with in our practice and the coaching work that we do. I work with a lot of women to help them develop themselves so they can step into all that they aspire to be and do. And I find a big gap and a big miss in terms of why is it that women, we dream big, hope big, we've got these, big, hairy, audacious goals, but not able to step in and then or to really thrive and excel. And it's because there's a big miss in terms of personal growth and development. So I'd say that's number one, focusing on personal growth and development, developing yourself, having a course curriculum every year in terms of the top 3 things that you need to work on. So that's number one. Number two, following your purpose. So finding out, what you were placed here to do is a big, I'll say a critical success factor in walking into the room. Because when people walk into the room and when we see people who we perceive to own the room, it's they're walking, or typically we mean that they're walking with a little bit of confidence, bravado, if you will.
Swag.
And right. And so in corporate, it's executive presence because we do executive coaching. So we have a lot of high potential women that they come to us for executive presence. And it looks like strength. It looks like, the
confidence.
posture.
Yeah.
Yep. And so what that comes from is not just having worked on themselves, but knowing for a lot of people, it's going to be knowing why they are here. Yeah. So I would say then that would be number two, owning the room. Owning the room. I think 3. And I'm making this up as I go. Like the first 2 are always the obvious. Development and purpose, but I'll say 3. So owning the room, not letting the room or not letting it be about you, but be about serving the room is a way to own the room. The person who doesn't own the room is the person who is self-indulged, so to speak. But typically a person that's going to own the room, they're really there because they are there of service to other people. And I know a lot of people may not get that, but it really is true. It's when you are genuinely interested in other people become interested in you. And so that would be the number 3, not allowing it to be about you. If your listeners here can identify with just attending a networking event, attending a conference, I would say don't push your business cards and don't push your story off on other people. Be genuinely interested in other people, and it's a way to show up with a strong presence. Strong presence. So that would be my 1, 2, and 3: personal growth and development, purpose, and then not having it be about you.
Fantastic, too. And I love the make it up as you go because, see, that's one of my favorite management techniques sometimes, when you just do it because what it comes from is a wealth of experience and it comes from reflection. And it also comes from wanting to share valuable, meaningful content. So, making it up as you go is cool because you came with some real good nuggets. I love them. So, Dee, you've got a phenomenal conference in April in New Jersey. And so I want you to share with our listeners how, about what's coming up, this awesome event, and also how can people connect with you if they wanted to work with you?
Sure, absolutely. So online, I'm www.dcmarshall.com, which is easy enough to remember, dcmarshall.com. And everywhere online, I am at Dee C Marshall. So Winrock and Rule Women's Empowerment New Jersey. It's happening on April 5th. It's every year I do this one event. It sells out. 500 women will gather. And why do they show up, or why should you show up if you are in New Jersey, New York, Philadelphia? I mean, people have traveled in. I don't think I don't think you have to travel in or get on a plane, but people have been known to do that. And so you should attend to meet other positive, like-minded professional women. A lot of people come to gain access to my influencer network. So I have friends who are influencers. You should come to expand and diversify your network. You should come to increase your exposure and your visibility. You could attend to promote your business or your brand. You should come. You can connect to a lot of industry insiders who will show up. Brandis Daniel, who's the founder of Harlem Fashion Row, will be there, and I've asked her to tell her story about legacy and negotiating a major historical deal as a black woman in business with Nike and LeBron James. The senator, New Jersey State Senator, the Honorable Teresa Ruiz, will be here. She was one of the youngest. So if you're Latina, all women can certainly be inspired by her. But you should come. You should come. You can get leads for new job opportunities. We have a career corner where you get complimentary, career advice and coaching, and we always have amazing people in that. We provide complimentary headshots to the first few people who show up. And, there's just so much to say for a short period of time that we do. And so I'd love for you all to attend. You can visit the website and register, www.winrockrule.com, www.winrockrule.com. And I'm excited about it.
Oh, it sounds phenomenal. Oh, my goodness. Winrock Rule. Yes. And so how did you come up with the title? I know you've been doing it for 5 years or so, but what inspired Winrock Rule?
You know what? It was really the thought that I really wanted to encourage women to proactively take control of their career and then focus on their personal growth, and then that way they could take control of their lives. So winning in your career, winning in your life, rocking in your career, it'll help you to rule in all that you do. And so it was really a play on those three elements, career, life, or career, and then your personal self in your life. So that's how we came up with it.
Awesome. Dee C. Marshall, it has been a joy. We have learned so much from you and appreciate your perspectives, particularly on service, leadership, influence, your best practices, sharing your stories, which were great. And, because, people will remember stories. So I love the stories. And it's just been a great conversation that I've enjoyed, and I look forward to many more.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
It's been my pleasure. So that concludes another Ignite to Impact podcast episode. Just phenomenal people out there who it's just so much my honor that they join us. And if you want to hear not only the conversation, stimulating, inspiring conversation from Dee C. Marshall, you can go to ignitetoimpact.com and listen to over 100 podcasts with people who talk about how they're making a difference in the community, how they're unleashing their impact and creating change, creating wonderful meaning for people. Conversations with influencers and how they make an impact. This is Dr. Geneva. I'll see you next time.
Ignite to Impact.